Parshat Va'era. At the end of last week's portion, we read of how things became a lot more difficult for the Jewish people in Egypt. And at the beginning of this week's Seder, therefore, we read about how Hashem reassures Moshe by saying to him that don't worry, everything's going to be okay. I am going to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. And he does this by the use of 4 different expressions of redemption. These are, of course, the 4 expressions we are very familiar with from the Seder night, from the Haggadah, where we read about these 4 expressions and they correspond to the 4 cups of wine. The 4 cups of wine that we have on Seder night correspond each one to one of the expressions of redemption. They are, of course, V'hitzesi, I will take you out. V'hitzalti, I will save you. V'ga'alti, I will redeem you. V'lakachti, and I will take you. And each one has its own specific meaning, reference, that Hashem was indicating to Moshe that he will save the Jewish people from. And therefore, let's look at the first one. V'hitzesi, I will take you out. Hashem says first, V'hitzesi eschem, I will take out mitachas sivlois Mitzrayim, from under the burden of Egypt. Now, the beginning of redemption can only be once we feel burdened and we call out to Hashem. That is what happened in Egypt, and we are told by our rabbis that in the same way that we were redeemed from Egypt, we will also be redeemed from future exiles. And therefore it's very important for us to understand very clearly the process that led to the exodus from Egypt. Right? From the burden of Egypt. The word sivlois is also related to the word savlanut. We'll all know this from Israel. Savlanut, something which we Jews struggle with a little bit. Patience and bearing. We know we have a little patience. Savlanut. What Hashem is saying over here is, I will take you out by ensuring that you will no longer be able to have any patience for the exile. When we're comfortable in exile, then we're not going to be redeemed. It's only when we feel no patience anymore, we don't want to cope with it, we call out to Hashem, and that is the beginning of the process of exile. There's still a lot more work to do, but that is the beginning of the process, not to feel too comfortable in exile. Then we're told after the 4 expressions that Hashem says, V'lakachti eschem li la'am, I will take you to me as a nation. And then vidatem ki ani Hashem, you will know that I am the Lord. Now, knowledge of Hashem is impossible to the degree of rational understanding. It's about faith. To know that Hashem exists is almost impossible. We have a commandment to know, of course. The Rambam Maimonides says that the first commandment is Leida, to know. What does this knowledge mean? How do we get to know Hashem? Not through the rational understanding of necessary science. Science very often will help us to understand certain aspects of creation. But here we are told very clearly, I will take you to me as a nation. When did that happen? When did we become a Jewish people, a nation? That was on Sinai. Through receiving the Torah and the covenant, the Torah on Sinai, that is when we became a Jewish people. I will take you for me as a nation was a reference to receiving the Torah on Sinai. And only after that, the Torah is therefore telling us, Vidatem ki ani Hashem, that you will know that I am Hashem. Only through the study of Torah and only through doing the mitzvahs, the commandments, will you realize and you will know that actually I am the Lord your God. And that is what is incumbent upon us. Hashem also says that I will give you this land. You're going to go out of Egypt, and I will give you the land which I promised to your forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the language that is used is as follows: V'nosati Isa lachem, I will give it to you. Moirasha, usually translated as a heritage, not Yerusha. It doesn't say I will give it to you as an inheritance, but it was going to be given to them as a heritage. And that is because our commentators explain that this is a hint. Now we see a reference and a hint to the fact that these people were not going to inherit the land of Israel. It was Moirasha, a heritage. It is something that was promised but they're not going to inherit it because they're not going to go into the land of Israel. Of course, it was later generations that were going to go into the land of Israel. They were going to spend their time in the desert. And then we have the episode after we are told of how Hashem reassures Moshe and says to him, I will take you out of Egypt and take everybody out of Egypt. He reassures him with these expressions of redemption in the ways that I've explained. And then the Torah goes on to chart the chronology and the lineage all the way to Moshe and Aaron. And we are told that Moshe before says to Hashem, look, Hashem says, come and speak to Pharaoh. And Moshe says to Hashem, hang on a minute. Hein b'nei Yisrael lo shumu alai. Behold, the Jewish people have not listened to me. Eich yishme'eni Paroi. How is Paroi going to listen to me? He says to Hashem, look, if the Jewish people are not going to listen to me and I'm their leader, there's no way Paroi is going to listen to me. How do we know that they're not going to listen to him? Because the Torah says. The Torah said just a few verses before, Moshe, they didn't listen to Moshe, Meikotze Ruach, or Me'avoda Kosher, from a shortness of breath, of spirit, and hard work. And so Moshe says to Hashem, look Hashem, I don't have a chance. The Jewish people won't listen to me. How is Paroi going to listen to me? And he says the reason is because I have a closed lip. Meaning Moshe had a speech impediment. But it doesn't really, if you think about it, there's something that doesn't make sense. Because why would it be just because the Jewish people didn't listen to Moshe, which the Torah tells us was because of their hard work, that Paroi won't listen to Moshe? But actually Moshe felt the reason that they, and this is what the Torah is teaching us, the reason that they did not listen to Moshe, and that's what Moshe thought, the reason they did not listen to Moshe was because of his speech impediment. He didn't feel it was because of their shortness of spirit, their given up hope. He felt, no, the Jewish people still have hope, but they just don't understand me because I have a speech impediment, and therefore if they don't understand me, then how much more so, even more so, Paroi is not going to understand me. And that's where Hashem says, I will send, don't worry, I will send your brother Aaron, and that's what we have as well. Hashem reassures Moshe that everything's going to be okay. And then we chart his lineage, and we are told that his parents were Amram and Yocheved. And it says that Amram took Yocheved, Vateled Loi, and she gave birth for him to Amram. They had children together. And who are they? Moshe and Aaron, the two sons Moshe and Aaron. And this is very important to understand. There are only 3 times in the Torah where the Torah mentions the wives or the parents, both mother and father of great leaders. And this is one of them. Aaron as well is told the wife that he took. But here, there is a very important message being given to us. Moshe was the greatest leader that ever lived. Aaron was the high priest. He was somebody who was known for his peace, Ohov Shalom. He loved peace, for Odze Shalom. He ran after peace. And the message, the powerful message that the Torah is giving to us is that great leaders come from human parents, fathers and mothers. Normal human beings born to a regular, natural father and mother. How do they become great leaders? Because they themselves worked on themselves. Moshe was a normal human being. Aaron was a normal human being. They worked on themselves to make sure that they were great, good people. And if they can do it, we can do it too. And that's the message the Torah is giving us by telling us who their mother and father was, and why it charts its whole lineage to show and to teach us they're normal human beings born to a natural, normal father and mother. And we too are normal human beings born to a natural father and mother. It is based on our own work, and the choices that we make will determine whether we are good people, whether we are great people. They were not angels brought down from heaven to help the Jewish people. Normal human beings from natural, normal mothers and fathers, just like you and I. And if they can make themselves great, we too can make ourselves good and great. That is the message that the Torah is giving us here. That is the message that hopefully you will take from this. And I wish you all a very good Shabbos and look forward to seeing you soon.